Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum for the Republican candidates running for the 11th Congressional District. This event is being recorded. I am Julie Niles, President of the League of Women Voters of Naperville. The League is a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose candidates for public office. You can rely on the League to present fair and civil candidate events where each candidate is allowed an equal chance to respond. Primary election day 2026 is March 17th, and early voting has already begun. Now is the time to make your plan for how you will cast your ballot. We hope that part of your plan is to educate yourself on the candidates and issues in order to confidently vote the whole ballot. In addition to watching candidate events, live or recorded, you may also find candidate information on vote411.org, our nonpartisan online voter guide. All candidates have been invited to respond to questions, and their answers appear complete and unedited. A video of this candidate forum will be linked to Vote 411. And now, let me introduce Barb Lamons, our moderator for tonight.
Hi, thank you, Julie, and welcome, as Julie said, to the Republican Candidate Forum for the Illinois 11th Congressional District by the League of Women Voters of Naperville. My name is Barb Lymans, a member of the League of Women Voters of Wheaton, and your moderator for this evening. I live in West Chicago, so I will not be voting for any of the candidates participating in the forums this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League is not affiliated with any political party. The League's purpose is to promote civic responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government and civil civic discourse. Providing opportunities to meet candidates is a major mission of the League of Women Voters, so voters can become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. I would like to now invite the candidates to turn on their videos. Thank you. All candidates were invited to tonight's forum. Regrettably, we recently heard from campaign staff that candidate Walter will not be joining us. Candidate Pierce responded he would be attending, but has not joined us as of yet. Those currently with us for tonight's forum are the Republican candidates for the 11th Congressional District of Illinois, candidate Tedora Brown and candidate Charlie Kim. The format tonight is a forum and not a debate. Candidates are expected to accurately represent the facts, and their responses reflect their own views and opinions. The League of Women Voters is not responsible for the accuracy of statements made by the candidates. It is the responsibility of the public, news media, opposing candidates to fact-check statements made by the candidates if necessary. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum. All candidates tonight have signed and returned the ground rules by the deadline established in the invitation. These rules specify the format, time limits, broadcasting of the forum, and other rules related to the conduct of the forum, such as candidates will restrict their answers to the questions posed by the moderator. The candidates will begin in alphabetical order with their 2-minute opening statements. They will then alternate the order in which they answer questions for 2 minutes. After the question portion of the forum, each candidate will give a 2-minute closing statement, continuing our alternating pattern. A member of the League will act as timer, and I will enforce the time limits. Candidates, you will see a slide to let you know that you have 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then stop. Should a candidate exceed the time limit, I will ask them to finish their sentence and move on to the next candidate. To ensure that the questions for tonight's forum represent a balance of topics, a panel of experienced members of the League of Women Voters has reviewed the questions submitted for appropriateness and to avoid duplication. So finally, I do want to say how appreciative we are of the candidates who are not only willing to serve in office, but who have agreed to be here tonight to share their ideas and goals. So let us get started. Candidate Brown, if you'll unmute yourself, you now have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Well, first, I want to say thank you guys for allowing me to be on this platform today. I am so gratefully appreciative of that, despite everything that is going on behind the scenes. So I do want to say thank you guys for that. I want to say I am running for Congress because too many Illinois families is just fed up and we're frustrated. As a homeschool mom and as an American businesswoman, we're just tired of career politicians forgetting exactly who we are and what we stand for and what we face on a daily basis. And I'm saying this to say that in order for anything to change, we're going to need people like myself, which is fresh new voices, new faces, people who have the tenacity and the strength that can actually take on the Democrat machine. That is one of the reasons why I'm here today. And as a former Democrat until about 11 years ago, I understand the severeness really on what we need to actually make this country great again. So with everything in my fiber, with everything in my strength, I am fighting for this seat, not just for me, but for the entire state of Illinois, for my children, my children's children, your children, their children. We are fighting for this seat so we can make sure that we bring common sense back into America to make sure that we're going to continue to do the right thing. And we're going to do it using our Christian conservative values. Again, my name is Tedora Brown. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kim, you can unmute yourself, please, and you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Hello, my name's Charlie Kim, and I'm running for Congress in Illinois 11. And my particular story starts out when I used to be back in Korea as a kid who was just coming out of the Korean War and ended up coming here in the 1970s. And it wasn't the greatest time because in the 1970s, as you may know, was the Vietnamese War. And my name's Charlie. And that means they thought I was Viet Cong, North Vietnamese Charlie. I'm not even North Korean, much less, but they believe that I was the enemy. And why I state this in importance is that I came to this land of opportunities and we ended up losing everything. And I turned homeless. Well, one thing I learned later on is you get a chance to be able to make your American dream come true. I lived most of my life in Woodridge, and then I moved to the area of Naperville, then Aurora. But prior to moving, I went to Downers Grove North and I got to play football on a state ranked team, and I was a starter offense and defense. And then everybody loved me. So now I'm the Charlie that they want everybody sitting at the lunch table before I was sitting by myself. So why I state this is because I would like to have you understand to give me a chance, because a lot of times people make judgments without getting to know the person. And I spent opportunity to go to Northern Illinois. I went to Harvard eventually, studied law, finance in the business school, and I got to work in the White House for a period of time in trade diplomacy, Congress as an advisor, and I was the co-chair of the Business Economic Advisory Board. And then I just finished with the U.S. Department of State as a diplomat and becoming a Fulbright ambassador, and with NATO forces as an honorary captain in the Air Force Reserve. So now I state that give me a chance and get to know me. And I do have certain platforms that we will be discussing. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kim, we're going to begin the first question with you. And the question is this: how do you balance party loyalty and the constitutional responsibility, duty of congressional oversight? You have 2 minutes.
I think one of the problems we have with our government is the oversight is not being handled properly. And the reason it's not being handled is I think there's a lot of personal interest involved. And this is one of the big problems we have, because when I was even overseas and speaking about democracy, people asked me, Charlie, what makes democracy so important and why is it so special? I said, because in democracy, we believe in something. We're supposed to believe in the Constitution. Well, the Constitution is just a piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything if we don't put it into some sort of action. And what we started learning is we forgot what it means to be an American and patriot. And this is a big problem because we started looking more towards a self interest. And we have to get back to the point where we held people accountable. For example, the shutdown, the 43-day shutdown happened not because that they were trying to make the country better. They were arguing about certain issues of healthcare reform, and also funds are going to go to people who are illegal aliens to get healthcare or not. 400 billion. 40 billion was still on the table to work it out. We have another possible shutdown, but it passed through this time. I think they've learned some things from the last shutdown, but still, the problem with Homeland Security and ICE funding may be held up, and that should be held up for discussion. So I think they're becoming somewhat more accountable, but we, the people, have to speak up, else they will continue to do what they say for their own interests and not for the interest of the people.
Thank you. Candidate Brown, how do you balance party loyalty and the constitutional responsibility duty of congressional oversight? Candidate Brown, you need to unmute. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I
There you
forgot
go.
this. Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, well, this is a good question. And I say that because being a former Democrat, loyalty is everything. What you can say is it's hard to be neutral, right? But we can't compromise our values when we're dealing with oversight and when we're dealing with a different political party. But what we can do is come to common ground. And even to rebuttal on what Charlie Kim spoke on with the government shutdown, this is what I explained when in my introduction. It is about the politicians understanding what the American families are facing and not what they are facing and using it as a political weapon. We cannot allow that to continue to happen. And I say that, and I say that with my heart. And I'm saying this to say that in order for us to do anything, we have to make sure that our constitutional rights is being used. We have to make sure that we have the effective policies that we're trying to introduce. And we can do that by not crossing loyalty, by actually, like I said, bringing common sense and common ground to the party, and making sure that the decisions that we're making is just the right thing, as far as not using it as a political weapon. I'm going to say that and continue to say that. Our politicians that are in office right now, a lot of them have been there for years and they're career politicians. So they don't understand what you and I are facing. So the government shutdown is something like a laughable thing to them, when we are literally facing different different things that we're facing on a daily basis, especially people that needs, the government for use. We just can't compromise. We will have to literally find some type of common ground in order for us to continue to do that oversight. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Brown, the next question will begin with you.
Great.
What proposals do you have to address the increasing cost of living?
Okay, so this is what I would do. The first thing that I would propose is a cut on property taxes, and also federal taxes as well. I say this because, especially in the 11th district, people know that in our district, we have a lot of working families. And even though our property taxes and our regular federal taxes are increasing, our wages is not. So because our wages is not increasing, then that is bringing a conflict of interest with our annual salaries, with our everyday living, with our monthly expenses, and that is not working for people in our district. So we're going to have to cut the inflation by introducing some type of bill. And this is why we're here, to create legislation. We have to make sure we bring people understand what our job is and our duty as in Congress. And I think a lot of people have forgotten the reason why we're in Congress. It is to oversight, the wars, and to oversight the bills and what we can do on a federal level when it comes down to the taxes. So if we can do that, I think that would actually help. If we put a cap on property taxes, and also, put a pause on some type of federal, federal tax cut. If we can simplify the federal tax code, I would do that with simplifying that by maybe eliminating, the filing, eliminating the tax costs. These are things that I would propose so we can actually bring down inflation in our district as well as our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kim, if you'll unmute yourself, what proposals do you have to address the increasing cost of living?
I'm gonna answer this in two parts. To elaborate on what candidate Brown was talking about, we actually already have a bill that's in place. The reason people aren't understanding it is because it just went to effect on January 1st on 2026. I participated on part of that with Speaker Johnson's office with HR 1, the big beautiful bill. Some are calling it a big ugly bill because they don't fully understand the bill. Now, it's not a perfect bill, but it's a bill that does have advantages for taxpayers. For example, we have a thing that was called the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. And that's something that I advocated very strongly in 2017. It was enacted, and then 2025, it needed to be extended. Fortunately, it went through with the HR 1. Now, that House resolution made it possible that approximately $2,670 per taxpayer will benefit. A household itself that has 4 members can actually benefit up to $13,000. We just haven't felt the full effect. Now, how can we do certain things? Well, for example, one of the things that the president was doing at this point, he's sending in the area of foreign direct investments to have manufacturing in the area of the United States. When it gets to economics, which I emphasized and got my doctorate in, it's an area where we need to bring money back to the United States, which means that we could circulate funds within the country. Because if money goes out to some place like Germany or Japan, we have to print another dollar bill that can devalue the dollar because it's not circulating in our M1 system. How can I change that? Well, the thing is, as a Congress member, you usually get 10 projects and can be up to $10 million. Bill Foster ends up spending $5 million as one of his big projects to put a bike trail in Geneva. My point is we could put that towards manufacturing and areas of lower cost for people's living and even parts to help people who need funding to be able to have a better lifestyle. So I would advocate for that point.
Thank you so much. Candidate Kim, how should Congress balance border security, economic needs, and humanitarian considerations in immigration policy?
Okay. We have laws, and laws are in place, but they don't mean that they could be enforced if we don't give them the resources. That's our problem. We had a Security Borders Act of 2023, and then under that act, it even states that we have to be able to do background checks, so-called vent them under Title I, and also areas to get asylum if they're asking for it, to know how to be able to track all the people that are coming in. And the problem is under Title II of that same act, it states that we should have resources and the capability to manage. We haven't been doing that properly. Congress's job is to be able to get them the resources and funding. Going to your particular point of enforcement, there has been some issues with ICE, and they are getting trained, but they are carrying a job. Yes, I do blame ICE to a sense, but I blame the leadership and Congress members for not doing the proper thing, not the people who are trying to work as law enforcement officers. So what I state is that we have to train the people properly, but the politicians need to speak with the people and make negotiation. Fortunately, they're trying to talk something out right now so we could extend our particular budget for the funds to not have another government shutdown with the Senate. And we were able to pass something today, and probably the president will sign to let the funds be in and get more talks. At least we've opened connections. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to welcome Candidate Pierce. Thank you so much. I understand there was a little technical difficulties behind the scenes. We've started the questioning, and so what I'd like to do is put you into the rotation of questions. And the question that Candidate Kim just answered was this: how should Congress balance border security, economic needs, and humanitarian considerations in immigration policy?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for bringing me in. It's an honor to be here, and I just wanted to say that up front. And my best regards to both of the candidates who are participating. I greet you both and, wish you all the best and in your endeavors there. As for the question, I believe that we need to make sure that the rules of engagement and how the raids are conducted is done in a humane, fair, impartial, and just way that really meets the standard that's been set by Americans and American law enforcement over the years. Let's review. Let's take a look back at the Obama years when he was the reporter in chief, and people were being put in cages, as a matter of fact, and there's a big stink about it. People didn't like that. And, we need to make sure that people are treated with two things, dignity and respect. That's job one. But we also need to make sure that the people who are being taken into custody, that they're allowed to be taken into custody unimpeded and with people not trying to be obnoxious to them or intentionally hurt them or anything like that. So it's a two-sided program. On the one hand, we need more of a civil conduct by all parties involved, both of the citizens as well as, by the ICE officers. But we also need to make sure that the ICE officers are given the proper tools that they need to do this. One of the problems Illinois has had, and also up in Minnesota, has been that in order to bring people in, because of the sanctuary policies the states have promulgated, what's happened is that they can't just pick them up at the jails. And so that's being addressed right now with Tom Homan, who just went up there. But if we develop, if they use the competency as their watchword, treat people with dignity and respect, and if the local officials would allow the ICE officials to go in and remove the people who are criminals, and there's been plenty of criminals, and I don't have to review that for you. I believe that would be a much easier and simpler process, and many more people would not be in fear or trepidation, and in fact would probably be willing to take advantage of the self-deportation that has been offered, because they get a plane trip back, they get money, and they can get a better way of doing it. Sorry, I went along too long.
Oh, no, that's okay. We'll just review with you. You will see on the screen a 1 minute, 15 seconds, and then the stop. So,
sorry about that.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you very
Candidate
much.
Brown. Now, to the same question, how should Congress balance border security, economic needs, and humanitarian considerations in immigration policy?
Well, I would first say right now, with what's going on in our country, we need to stop all of entry. We need to cut it off. We need to figure out who's in our country. We have gotten to the point we do not know who's in our country, and we need to figure that out. So I am 100% with stopping anyone from coming in our country. I would also say too that we need to enforce the laws. Right now, people are not following the law, and that's why we're at where we're at. If you cross over the border and you are an illegal immigrant, at that point, you have become a criminal in some type of way. And what happens when you're a criminal is when you come over to our country, you're going to continue to do criminal things to stay in the country. So we cannot allow this to continue to happen. We have to make sure that ICE is supported. We have to make sure that they're supported. We have to make sure we cannot. When you talk about the raids, and I'm just listening to what both of the candidates were just talking about. When you talk about the raids, none of this would happen if the people would just follow the law, and if the governors would do exactly what the law says, and that is to turn over the illegal immigrants. If that would happen, then it will be done in a successful way. If people would just self-deport, give themselves up. But at the end of the day, they are not doing exactly what they're supposed to do, because you have people in another party, and some Republicans as well, that are harboring these illegals and not allow them to self-deport. So we can make sure that we don't get caught in what get caught in Minnesota. And in order for that to happen, law enforcement has to be enforced. That's the only way. There's no other way. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pierce, I'm wondering if we can have you stay stationary and avoid having side conversations, as we can see you the whole time, and it could be distracting to the other candidates. Okay. Thank you. And Candidate Pierce, we're going to start this question with you. What concerns, if any, do you have with our current electoral process and voter access? And you have 2 minutes.
Okay, I have a very large concern with the current problems that we're having with the voter ID issue. And we're not really able to make sure that we've got verification of people who are out there voting. And I think that should be one person, one vote. Throughout the entire world, it's one person, one vote, and you're required to produce an ID. For example, I lived in Europe for quite a while I was serving overseas, and they would go down to vote, and you would always have to produce an ID. We have people all over our country who are on all kinds of programs in every kind of neighborhood. They all have IDs of one sort or another. So it's rather simplistic and kind of insulting to go to think that people can't produce an ID if they want to go and vote. So I think that's our number one issue that in terms of that. The other issue may have to do with some of the hijinks that people have brought up before about maybe some of the way that the distortions have been with some of the machines. And I really don't, I'm not an expert on the machines, but I would say we need to make sure that that is thoroughly accounted for and that any issues such as that should be taken very seriously and brought up and made sure of that. The other thing is to make sure that we take a look at to ensure fairness in elections, that we make sure that the gerrymandering that has been going on in this country needs to be fixed. You know, Illinois is one of the most gerrymandered states in the country, and the 11th district in particular. And so if people were to really want to get, you know, they should be gerrymandering these things based on socioeconomics. If you take a look at demography, you take a look at the 11th district, it goes from urban to rural to affluent to blue collar. And it's a hodgepodge of communities that have been strewn together to try and prevent, really to prevent Republicans from being able to win. So these things are actually disenfranchising the majority of the people throughout the state because Illinois has only a couple of actual districts that are red, but yet most of the state is red. And so we need to make sure that those three areas, making sure the machines, making sure that the voter ID is there, and to make sure that there's fairness in how we set up our districts. I think that would go a long way towards fixing things. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Brown, what concerns, if any, do you have with our current electoral process and voter access?
So I'm going to answer that in two parts. The electoral process is, to me, that each county, each state need to abide by the law. And that's it. Whatever the laws are actually built on the state board of elections in each state, and there should not be any discrepancies between any one of those. They're the ones who created it, and they need to follow their own process. That's my take when it comes down to the electoral process. When you're talking about voter access, I'll say this. It's not about, everyone keeps talking about voter ID. Let me just explain something. Here in Illinois, an illegal alien can go to the DMV and get an ID, right? They can go get an ID. So that means that they can actually take that ID, an illegal alien, and go to the polls and vote with that ID, right? They can register right there. They can do, this is what it is, right? So it is about the registration, the voter registration. You can get that information from your county, right? Or from the Illinois State Board, or from wherever you get it from. And you can understand that most of the time it doesn't match. And it doesn't match, and it's easy for us to figure it out. Just use the Social Security Administration. Either you have a Social Security number, or you have an IT number, or you don't have anything. So if we can solidly put up on that, that will stop a lot of this election voter fraud that is going on, because everyone's talking about the ID. The ID is not the issue. It is the registration that is the issue. A lot of the voter registration information is outdated. My son passed away. He has a Social Security number. If someone uses his Social Security number, it's going to come up that he's deceased. So we have to get past the voter ID thing, because here in the state of Illinois, you can go to the DMV, get a driver's license, get an ID, and you can go vote. So we need to figure out how we're going to get solid on the voter registration. That's my take on it.
Thank you. And Candidate Kim, what concerns, if any, do you have with our current electoral process and voter access?
I disagree with other candidates because I've been working on this, and I know the Supreme Court case that was brought up, and I know the party members, and even spoke with Bose's office, Congressman Bose, and other two people, Susan and Lori. I give them a lot of credit because it's a very important issue. Vote by mail has become a big issue, and constitutionally, we're supposed to have an elected official on the date of the election. So there shouldn't be late ballots. Going to your direct question, is that we have found out, Judicial Watch that did research, 5 million votes in the last election were not verified. That's a lot of votes. And it's amazing that Donald Trump was able to win, even though a lot of them might have been against his particular side to be voted in. How do we solve something like this? House Representative Bill 22, given by Chip Roy in Texas, currently has a bill stating that you have to proof your ID at the voting polls. Now, why I disagree on some things with the other candidates is because it's not always easy to verify ID. Now, there is a thing that's under the area that you could go to the DMV like a real ID and be able to justify it, or any federal kind of document, even a naturalized paper like I have. When I came from Korea and my mother and I got citizenship, I still have my naturalized paper and we could show it. So there's various ways. And if you have an ID with that little star on it, it's a verification. It's almost like e-verified when I got income from the government. So there is methods, and we need to support that people who are authentic are able to show that. And I think HR 22 is a bill that can do that. And I would support that if I was in Congress.
Thank you. Candidate Brown, the next question will begin with you.
Great.
What changes, if any, would you like to see in the existing healthcare system?
When it comes down to healthcare, we need to see some changes. We need to do exactly what our president is trying to implement, and that is to turn it back over to the actual citizens. Give us the opportunity to pick our own healthcare provider. Right now, it looks as if the pharmaceutical companies are the ones that's actually making all the money. They're not, we need to be transparent. We need to give our own selves the independency of picking and choosing what healthcare provider we need, which one we do. The ACA bill that is going on right now, we know that is tremendously crazy. I literally just got information in the mail about my own policy that is going up to $900 for just me and 2 children. So underage kids. So we're going to have to change something. And it's, we all don't have the solutions. We do not have the solutions. We can say and do all the things that we want to do. It goes back to why the government was shut down before. The Congress is forgetting about the American families that are actually out here struggling, trying to figure it out. They're forgetting about our senior citizens. They're forgetting about our veterans. They're literally forgetting about everybody, and they're just thinking about themselves because they have nothing to worry about. So it's easy for them to shut down the government, especially when it comes down to healthcare, because they're okay. We're the ones out here. We, the people, are the ones out here trying to figure out, okay, should I take this plan? Should I get a PPO? Should I get an HMO? Should I take Blue Cross Blue Shield? Should I take Aetna? We're the ones trying to figure it out here, making running our heads around, trying to figure out what our next step is. So that is my take when it comes down to healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kim, what changes, if any, would you like to see in the existing healthcare system?
Well, this is a area that I worked on when I was advisor in Congress, and I was the co-chair of the Business Economic Council during the period of 2008, 2009. And I knew that we were short on our funding, but the agenda and at the time, Speaker Pelosi wanted to get it through and worry about it later, which I disagreed, and I didn't get to have a voice, but now I have somewhat of a voice. And to answer it in 2 facets here quickly, is that we need to realize Obamacare is unaffordable. Now, I'm not saying we should get rid of the benefits, because there's a lot of people who need it, especially people who already have illnesses. However, the thing is that, for example, it's made a lot of insurance companies rich, something that candidate Brown was saying. For example, we have United Health. They have increased their premium 1,177%. Their stock has raised from that area of $25 a share up to $327 a share. They've been making a fortune. The lowest one, Athens, made 414% increase in their stock. So the raises of premium has been what candidate Brown was saying. We have a selection of only certain kind of so-called lobbyists and groups that's controlling what we could choose as citizens. Our politicians need to go on the factor that we need to have a choice. Now, there is a bill currently that's 6708. It is in the House and it's passed going to the Senate. That gives us the capability to do two things. One, under the area of companies, which still have to pay minimum health care plan if they have 50 or more employees, and a lot of companies shut down because of that. There's a thing called association health plan. The
I'm sorry,
companies will come together.
your time has elapsed for the question,
Oh,
candidate.
okay. Well, then it dies. And the other thing would be choice,
No, I'm sorry.
the choice
I'm
plan.
going to move on to the next candidate. So, Candidate Pierce, what changes, if any, would you like to see in the existing healthcare system? Candidate Pierce, you're on mute. You're still muted. You're still muted. Candidate Pierce, you're muted. We can't hear you. No.
Sorry about that. They unmuted me. We're
Okay.
having, apologize for the technical difficulties. We were not able to, we wanted to make sure that we were here. And so, unfortunately, we didn't get the room that we were supposed to have. And so I apologize for the background disruptions to my other candidates as well as to you, ma'am. Okay, in answer to the question, look, the ACA has been a failure from the beginning. And if Mr. Kim was aware of their issues, it seems like now that he has a voice and glad that he's using it. What we need to do is make that a stronger voice and go back and get the government out of that business and stop subsidizing these insurance companies. It's turned into a burgeoning bureaucracy as well as a burgeoning, kind of way of just subsidizing the insurance companies, resulting in less insurance every time, while American taxpayers are either footing the bill or receiving poorer service. So what we need to do is we need to implement like a health savings account. We need to implement so that there's more competitiveness out there and offering a better suite of services, not locking people into one particular insurance policy where they have to get X number of things which have nothing to do with them. And give people choice back. And if you have choice, then you have competition, and competition should drive the prices down. But as long as the government is subsidizing these things, they're going to continue to, it's like they keystone the prices up. So we need to get rid of that. And I believe that it was a terrible thing that was foisted on the American people in the middle of the night in 2010. So we need to go back and we kind of, we need to get out of the healthcare business and back into taking care of our economy, our national defense, and let the states work on these things and local communities get the money back to the people who are making the money and making sure that people can take care of themselves in an affordable way. And we need to make sure that money that has been diverted to these programs should be used for our seniors and our real disabled and our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kim, the next question will begin with you. What principles will you apply to shaping oversight and legislation of AI and emerging technologies?
I couldn't hear some of it. I think candidate Pierce still had his mic on or something. I
No,
missed part of
I
yours.
think that what we've been seeing is that you're freezing up just a little bit every now and then. So let me repeat the question for you.
Okay.
What principles will you apply to shaping oversight and legislation of AI and emerging technologies?
Okay. AI is an area that we still don't understand. This question has came up pretty much on every one of our forums, and we have an area to be a leader, and I support President Trump on his initiative to make us America first in the technology area with AI. And we have a current bill right now that is trying to go through to be able to support called the Artificial Intelligence Leadership Act. And I think we need to support that to have areas to learn more about it, and especially research, because I think a lot of people still don't understand what AI is. I still have a problem because when I see something like even on social media, I might see someone who's supposed to be in the area of Hawaii, and I just saw the person down the street. So you can't really verify things to know if it's true or not true. We're getting better at it, like check marks. That's possibility as a solution. Where there's verification methods like a blue check on Facebook. I think we need to support more research for that. And I would fund that if I was in Congress so we could do something before we get too deep into something we don't understand and waste money and time and even cause more damage in the social media forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pierce, the same question. Are you, Candidate Pierce, can you hear us? Okay. What principles will you apply to shaping oversight and legislation of AI and emerging technologies? Candidate Pierce, okay. Were you able to hear the question? You're on mute, sir. We need you to unmute.
Okay, sorry. Again, apologize for the okay. As far as I could barely hear you, I sent a message to your
Well,
thing there.
let me
I heard.
let me
I
repeat
put
the
my ear up to the
question,
phone. Okay,
and we'll start your time again. Let me repeat the question. And we want to make sure that you're not consulting with anybody in the room also.
I don't need to consult with. I am a disabled veteran. I have a hearing issue.
Oh,
And,
no. Oh, okay.
So I don't need any help on a debate. I just can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
Because of the phone thing here. So that's why I'm bringing it up to my ear.
Okay. Okay, great. What principles will you apply to shaping oversight and legislation of AI and emerging technologies?
Okay, well, this is something that has been a growing issue. There's a number of areas where people are concerned. Number one, I think the first one is people are very concerned even right now about the danger to children and to mentally fragile people who may be vulnerable to some of the AI conversational tools and other things out there where they befriend them and all kinds of stuff. So that's a start. So Congress needs to take seriously, even now, the dangers that pose. The other thing about that is when AI, the facilities that are being used and are developed, they grow quite quickly because it's growing exponentially. And so we need to make sure when those communities are being affected, remember when it's AI, it's going over the internet. So it's interstate commerce, and so it's a nationally recognized thing that the government does have some regulatory issue over. So we need to make sure that when they are put up, that it takes in mind the needs of the community and that they're not being run over, as well as the power that's going to be required. And then we need to take a look at the resources that are being taken away from the rest of the community and the state. And also, what does that mean? Illinois has got a lot of resources. We have a lot of water resources. We have a lot of coal. But our energy prices have gone sky high in Illinois. Even if you try to go solar, they're going to charge you for things. So all of these factors mean that the federal government does have a role in making sure that AI is properly set up with the communities in mind. And I think the government needs to be protecting the communities, not necessarily in building the AI, but in making sure that local communities in particular, that their culture, that the people who live in the communities and the people who be victims on the internet and so forth, due to the AI usage, is taken in mind. As for jobs, there's going to be loss of jobs, but there'll be more jobs that'll be created. Just look at all the jobs that have been created as a result of the development of the internet. So I think it's going to be a mixed blessing. We just need to make sure that we maintain our humanity and how we treat each other and our communities.
Thank you so much. And please let me know if you have any more further difficulties hearing, okay?
I still can't hear you, but I'll let you know. I just put up the
Okay.
hearing.
Thank you.
I'd
So
like to interject for a second, Barbara. You said there's a timer, and I don't know, maybe it's just my thing on my screen. There is no timer. We're
it
not
should be
seeing
a
a time
blue,
clock.
it should be a blue box on your screen.
There
Perhaps
is none.
do you have it on are you on gallery view?
I don't know, but okay. That's one of the
So
reasons that I'm not.
I'll try and signal you,
Okay.
Candidate Kim, when there's a
Okay, that would be
1 minute.
better because I don't have anything on my screen.
Okay, I'll try and signal you. You can see me, right? Can you see me? Yeah, okay. Candidate, we're going to start the next candidate Brown. What
Can you repeat the
principles,
question? Yeah, thank you.
yeah, what principles will you apply to shaping oversight and legislation of AI and emerging technologies?
Well, AI has been here for a very long time, and we can't shy away from it, and it's not going away. So we're going to have to learn how to integrate with AI. I think there's systems that we can, or some principles that we can put in play that will be privacy protection, government oversight, building trust, job, collaboration, and we can do those things by a lot of different things. We can actually we can start one way by making sure that we provide the correct information. When it comes down to privacy, we can one of the main things I think is opting. You have like a check mark that says opt out. There's different ways that you can get that done. We can make sure there's an audit being done consistently. We can also make sure that the government oversight is done daily. That will probably stop a lot of the misinformation that is going on. And if you take AI, I've said this before and I'll say it again, if you take AI, which is the technology, and you take a human being and you collaborate together, that's job creation right there. And with that being job creation, you're building trust with the computer system, with the AI technology, as well as with an individual or a citizen. And with that being said, that'll push towards us, with making sure that the misinformation is not misinformation anymore, because we will start by watermarking, labeling. And if people are not doing this when they are creating and generating AI technology, then we're going to have to do some criminal, there are going to have to be some criminal fines and things that's going to have to go on, because there's no way that we as American citizens should have to figure out if we're looking at something with AI, if this has been AI generated. It should be some watermark labeling going on. There needs to be something, and we need to put that type of enforcement to go on to make sure that this is actually how it is, or there's going to be criminal charges. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pierce, the next question is going to start with you. So if you'd like to unmute, and what considerations should Congress use when evaluating the benefits, costs, and obligations of U.S. participation in NATO?
Okay, great. I'm glad you asked that question, because NATO is, I worked 25 years in Germany and Europe in general. And NATO, I've met a lot of people from NATO, worked with a lot of them, worked at the European Command headquarters, and that's in Stuttgart, Germany. So NATO is very vital to us. We need to maintain it, but we need to make sure that every country is paying its fair share. When President Trump talked to NATO several years ago, they actually laughed. They had the audacity to laugh at him while he was addressing them. And then just a few years later, after the Russia invasion into Ukraine, they had a completely different tone. And, it was really humbling for them. They're eating a little bit of humble pie. NATO has an important role for us, but we can't depend on NATO, and we cannot be subservient to NATO. Now, the commander of European Command is also the NATO commander. So we've got.
Oh, I'm afraid that we've lost Candidate Pierce. So while he reconnects, Candidate Brown, what considerations should Congress use when evaluating the benefits, costs, and obligations of U.S. participation in NATO? You have 2 minutes. If you'll unmute yourself. And you need to, there you go.
Okay, I'm sorry. So when it comes down to NATO, I think that the solution that we actually we can probably do is make sure that with the article that comes with it, that we are implementing. We're implementing a budget that will be balanced when it comes down to that. So anything with foreign money, when it comes down to that situation, because I want to make sure I don't say anything out of order. Congress, our job is to make sure that we are overseeing the war, the spending, and making sure that we are governing the sovereign, right? So because we have that authority to make sure that happens, we are over the executive excess. So we want to make sure that we're making the right decision when it comes down to not just NATO, but with all of the foreign countries. So we want to make sure that we're actually providing the right information. We're making sure that we're providing the right oversight, and we're making sure that we're making the right decision as Congress together when it comes down to NATO. So that would be my take on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kim, what considerations should Congress use when evaluating the benefits, costs, and obligations of U.S. participation in NATO? And I will indicate one finger when you have 1 minute left. Use a full 5 fingers when you have 15 seconds left, and I'll close fist when it's time to stop, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it, Barbara.
Okay.
This is an area that I just came back from in 2023. NATO is an area that I specialize with international security. And I had so-called more boots on the ground, specifically in Germany and areas of Kosovo, and did some work in Ukraine, but not boots on the ground. NATO is an organization that we do need to keep alliances, I believe, and that might be differ a little with Trump's administration. However, I also agree with Trump because there's 32 countries that are involved and they're not paying their share, and we're paying a bulk of it. A lot of people don't know this. It's about $1.5 trillion of expenses that come into the point. So this is something that people don't understand. It costs a lot of money to function, and especially what's going on with Ukraine. We do need to support Ukraine, and a lot of people don't understand this. We have a treaty that's called the Budapest Treaty. I was in the White House administration that time, and we're obligated to help Ukraine. The irony of this is Russia actually was supposed to also protect them with Canada and the United States. And Russia turned their back on them and attacked the country they're supposed to protect. So the point is, we can't just leave countries and let things like that happen. But I agree with President Trump that everybody has to pay their share because they're not doing that. And that's why we need to force them to pay, or we need to start our own organization, maybe with Greenland. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Well, I'm afraid that was all the time we have for our questions tonight. So what I'd like to do is begin closing statements. So we'll begin with Candidate Kim, and you have 2 minutes for your closing statement. And once again, I'll show you 1 minute, and then I'll show you that you have 15 seconds left, okay?
That's
So
helpful.
Candidate Kim, your closing statement for tonight.
Yes. One of the things that I appreciate about these kind of forums is a lot of people don't understand how important it is to participate. One thing I think our government forgot, and something that's coming this year, is the Declaration of Independence. There's 3 particular documents that's the premise of our country. And we have the Declaration of Independence that we're stating in 1776. And we also have the area of U.S. Constitution that was in 1789. And then we also have the Bill of Rights. And why I state with the Bill of Rights that's in 1791, it gives us individual rights. But in order to have those individual rights, we have to protect our community and get involved. So when I think about that, it's so important to have these kind of discussions, because if we're going to have independence, just like our forefathers did, they came together with 13 countries. There was actually a president of Virginia. There was like a president of Tennessee. So the problem is, we need to start becoming in that same essence to be able to know that if we're going to have freedom, freedom isn't free. And if you really care about your country, you have to care about your community. And that's why I think it's so important that we have forums like this. And in order to make this work, we have to do it ourselves. Because if we don't, no one's going to do it for us. So I'm glad that I have the opportunity, and please contact me for any questions, because I'm here to serve you as a representative, which I think a lot of people forgot in our Congress, to be a civil servant instead of trying to tell people what they want, instead of listening what they should give to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Kim. Candidate Brown, if you'll unmute yourself, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Well, first, I would like to say again, thank you guys for having me today. I appreciate these forums as well. You get to know the candidate and so on. But I want to say this, that the law It is a work in progress. It's a work in progress. It's like it's never finished. And I'm really not going to sit here and just pretend like I'm okay when I'm frustrated and angry of what I see that's going on in Congress every day. And in order for anything to change, you're going to need people like myself that will be able to take on the Democrat machine, that will be able to take on the incumbent, because our goal is to win the November's election. We're not here for a political party, the political theatric that's going on with this primary. Because if we are serious as Republicans, we have come so far. We know this. We as Republicans have come so far. We made so much progress. And for us to know that this election in November is a critical election, if we don't win this election, this will allow our president to not be protected, our country to not be protected. So we have to actually get to the polls to vote for the person that can actually take on the incumbent. This is what I want to leave you guys with. I want you guys to understand that if we don't be a voice, the Republican Party needs a voice that can take on people that are in office right now, that are in Congress, that can not afraid to say exactly what needs to be said, and do not compromise our Christian values, our American values, and will not back down, because a true patriot, what we do, we face the challenge, we fight for whatever we need. And right now, our world, our country, this state, we need us. So I pray that when you guys go to the polls in March or right now, for you guys to vote for Tedora Brown, as I am the one that can get the crossover votes because we're outnumbered, and I'm the one that can take on the Democrat machine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candidate Brown. I believe that Candidate Pierce has joined us again with some technical difficulties, and I believe we're trying to allow him to speak. Candidate Pierce, are you here? Candidate Pierce, I see you on my screen. If you could turn your camera on and unmute, we're in the process of closing statements. Candidate Pierce? Well, on behalf of the community, I want to thank both of you, for all you candidates, for coming and joining with us this evening. Our democracy thrives when all of us are engaged. Attending or watching a candidate forum is an excellent way to be empowered to join discussions on issues and make your voice heard on Election Day. We hope that each and every one of you will vote and inspire your family and friends and neighbors to do the same. Early voting has begun at locations designated by your county election authority and will widen to additional permanent locations on March 2nd. To vote by mail, please request and return your ballot to your election authority in a timely manner, as your completed ballot must be postmarked no later than March 17th. Please note the United States Post Office has made changes to the postmarking process that could delay the date of your postmark is affixed to all your mail. Additional information on how and when to vote can be found at vote411.org and the Naperville League of Women Voters website and social media. Recording of this forum for Republican candidates for the Illinois 11th Congressional District can be found on the Naperville League of Women Voters YouTube channel. And I apologize to the candidates and to those watching for the technical difficulties that we've experienced tonight, but hope you'll reach out to the candidates and visit their social media and websites and 411 to find out their positions on the various issues facing our democracy. So with that, I'll say good night and thank you all.